To the new video. Given here is the full chapter explanation. We will also help you with solutions for all the questions that are given at the end of the chapter. It's a humble effort to make all the lessons and its solutions more simplified for every student. Please consider subscribing the channel and click the bell icon to be notified of the new videos. Once again, welcome to Class 10 History Chapter 1, The Rise of Nationalism in Europe. As we move on, we shall learn what is nationalism and how it helped for the formation of nation-states in the world. If we look back to mid-18th century, we cannot find nations in their modern form because people lived with kingdoms, small states or principalities and territories. We know that India had many disintegrated territories before it was unified into a nation. In those days, people rarely left their village. They did not have a common identity. They were more likely identified with their village or landlord. What is a nation? Is there any difference between a country and a nation? Often we use these two terms as synonyms. A country has a defined territory, a national language, and a central government. But a nation has no specific territory. It is formed by the people who shares common culture, language, religion, or race. Then what is nationalism? Nationalism is an intense form of patriotism or a sense of belonging to. It gives a common identity to its people. It is nothing but bringing together a number of disintegrated territories into a single national state. So we are going to learn how, when and where the idea of nationalism emerged and how the territories were unified into nation states. The first clear expression of nationalism came with the French Revolution. A quick recap of 1789 French Revolution will help us to understand it. Before the revolution, the social, economic, and political conditions in France were extremely unequal and exploitative. The basic rights of people were denied under monarchies and feudal system. The concepts of liberty, equality, and fraternity were the forces of French Revolution. French Revolution led to the end of monarchy and established representative government. In 1848, Frédéric Soreau, a French artist, prepared a series of 4 prints visualizing his dream of a world made up of democratic and social republics. His intention was to unify the disintegrated states into nation states with constitutional government and to spread the ideas of nationalism everywhere in the world. The first print of the series showed the people of Europe and America, men and women of all ages and social classes, marching in a long train, offering homage to Statue of Liberty as they pass by it. Have you seen the Statue of Liberty? It is one of the enduring symbols of USA, a perfect symbol of freedom. Statue of Liberty was a joint effort between America and France to commemorate the 100 years of the American Declaration of Independence in 1876. It is a sign of their mutual desire for liberty. In this print by Soreau, America was leading the procession because it was already a nation state. Second print is that Statue of Liberty, a female figure holding torch of enlightenment in one hand and charter of rights of man on the other. French people carrying the tricolor has just reached the Statue of Liberty because by this time in 1848, revolution had taken place in France. The third print is that of shattered remains of the symbols of absolutist institutions or monarchical rules. Absolutism refers to an uncontrolled monarchical rule. The third print indicates the end of conservatism and monarchical system of rules. The fourth print refers to his utopian vision in which people of the world are shown marching together on the path of development. What is utopian vision? Utopian refers to a society that is so ideal. Sir Thomas More was an English writer and a statesman. He was the first person to use the term utopia to describe a perfect community set on an island in which people shared a common culture and a way of life. Why was Soreus' concept an utopian one? It is because at that time the concept of nation state was emerging and several countries were still being ruled by monarchy. He depicted people of the world into distinct nations identified through their flag and national costumes. French Revolution and the idea of nation. Nationalistic feelings began to be expressed by the French Revolution in 1789. The French revolutionaries took many important steps to create a sense of common identity among the French people. In the previous class, we have studied about this revolution in detail. France was ruled by monarchs who had absolute powers. I hope you remember how a constitution was framed to limit the powers of monarchy after the revolution in 1789. Now let us see what steps did the French revolutionaries take to create a sense of collective identity among the people. The French revolutionaries aimed to liberate people of Europe from despotism and help them to become nations. Despotism means a political system where the ruler holds the absolute power. French Revolution led to the transfer of sovereignty or power from the monarchy to a body of French citizens. They encouraged the ideas of la patrie and les citoyens, means the fatherland and the citizens. This emphasized the notion of a united community enjoying equal rights under a constitution. A new French tricolor flag was chosen to replace the former royal standard. The Estates General was renamed as the National Assembly and was elected by a group of active citizens. Regional dialects were discouraged and French became the common language of the nation as it was spoken and written in Paris. A central administrative system made uniform laws for the entire nation. Uniform system of weights and measures were adopted. Internal customs duties and dues were abolished. New hymns were composed, oaths were taken, and martyrs were commemorated in the name of nation. With the outbreak of Revolutionary War, the French armies began to carry the idea of nationalism to other European countries. Napoleon Bonaparte, who fought for the revolutionary government, became the Emperor of France in 1804. He gained absolute powers and set out to conquer neighboring European countries. Rather than helping France to develop as a free republic, Napoleon restored monarchy type of government in France. But in the administrative field, he had incorporated revolutionary principles. His intention was to weaken his enemies and expand his empire in all Europe. His administrative reforms are known as the French Civil Code of 1804 or Napoleonic Code. Let us see what changes did Napoleon introduce to make the administrative system more efficient in the territories ruled by him. Napoleonic Code. Napoleonic Code did away with all privileges based on birth and tried to establish equality before the law. But women could not enjoy equal freedom with men. Napoleonic Code established universal right to property. That means buying and holding property became more simple. It simplified administrative measures. In the feudal system of government, king was at the top of administration and peasants were at the bottom. Most of the people worked the land as peasants. They did not own any land but did all the work like farming and paid manorial fees to their landlords. Napoleon abolished the feudal system and freed peasants from serfdom and manorial dues. Transport and communication systems were improved under the Napoleonic Code. In towns, guild restrictions were removed. Basically, guild refers to the association of merchants, craftsmen, or traders to promote their economic interest. Guild is nothing but something like trade union. Certain restrictions imposed on the association in terms of trade or manufacturing are called guild restrictions. Napoleon removed those restrictions and allowed merchants and artisans to trade freely. Now we will look into the making of nationalism in Europe. Mid-18th century Europe had no nation states as we know them today. It was a patchwork of many different regions, kingdoms, and people. People residing in different areas spoke different languages. For example, in Hungary, half of the population spoke Magyar and other half spoke variety of dialects, and in Galicia, the aristocracy spoke Polish. The only tie binding these groups was a common alliance to the emperor. Now we shall see aristocracy and the new middle class. Aristocracy was the dominant class in Europe. They were the highest social class who had special titles like knight, duke, duchess, etc. They owned land and more often they spoke French language. Their families often connected by ties of marriages. For example, Marie Antoinette, the famous French queen, was born in Austria. Her father was a Holy Roman Emperor and her brother was Austrian Emperor. The aristocracy dominated the society using their wealth, controlling the best land and their tenants. The majority of the population was made up of peasantry who did not own the land but were tenants or serfs. A new social class was made up during this period. Industrial production and trade led to the growth of towns and a new social group in 18th century. This new social group was made up of industrialists, businessmen and professionals like clerks, lawyers, teachers, etc. It was among these educated middle classes that ideas of national unity gained popularity. They are also known as liberal nationalists. These new liberal middle classes were against autocracy and privileges by birth. They believed that a person's social position must depend on his merit. What did liberal nationalism stand for? For the new middle classes, liberalism stood for freedom for the individual and equality of all before the law. Yet only the property owned people or the rich had the right to vote and to get elected. Liberal nationalists stood for the end of autocracy and clerical privileges. They also worked for representative government through elected parliament. In the economic sphere, liberalism stood for the freedom of the markets and the abolition of state-imposed restrictions on the movement of goods and capital. For example, German-speaking region had 39 states. Each state had its own system of weights, measures and currency. Such conditions were obstacles to economic exchange and growth. So, the new commercial classes argued for the creation of unified economic territory. As a result, in 1834, a customs union of German states or Zollverein was formed and abolished tariff barriers. It reduced the number of currencies to two and created a network of railways to stimulate mobility of people and goods. A new conservatism emerged after 1815. As we have seen, Napoleon wanted to expand his empire in all Europe and annexed many territories to France. But he was defeated in the Battle of Waterloo. After his defeat, European governments followed a spirit of conservatism. They believed that monarchy, the church, and social hierarchies should be preserved. Most of them believed that the past had to be respected and change had to be brought about through slow process. In 1815, representatives of European powers such as Britain, Russia, Prussia, and Austria met at Vienna to draw up a settlement for Europe. This meeting, hosted by Austrian Chancellor Duke Metternich, is called Vienna Congress. They drew up the Treaty of Vienna in 1815. The main idea of this treaty was to restore the monarchies that had been overthrown by Napoleon, or to undo the changes that had happened under Napoleonic Wars, and to check on expansion of French territory. According to Vienna Congress, Bourbon dynasty was restored to power in France. France lost the territories it had annexed during Napoleonic Wars, a series of states created on the French boundary for preventing French expansion in future. But German Confederation was left untouched because the Confederation stood to replace the Holy Roman Empire, which had been destroyed during French Revolutionary and Napoleonic Wars. Vienna Congress re-established monarchical or conservative rule in many states of Europe. These conservative regimes did not tolerate criticism. Most of them imposed censor laws to control what was said in newspapers, books, plays, and songs. Censor laws were imposed to curb the liberal nationalist activities that reflected the ideas of liberty and freedom. The revolutionaries had commitment to oppose monarchical forms of government. They aimed to fight for liberty, freedom, and creation of nation states. So in 1815, liberal nationalists and revolutionaries formed many secret societies in many European states to spread their ideas. Let us learn about a few of those secret societies and those who organized the secret societies. Giuseppe Mazzini. Giuseppe Mazzini was an Italian revolutionary born in Genoa. He was a member of the secret society in Carbonari. Italy was a patchwork of small states and kingdoms. Mazzini believed that unification of Italy as the basis of liberty. He founded secret societies like Young Italy in Marseille and Young Europe in Berne. Following his model, secret societies were set up in Germany, France, Switzerland, and Poland. Later, these secret societies helped for the unification of Italy and other territories. We will discuss about the unification of Italy in a short while, because Europe went through an age of revolution before the unification of territories into nation states. Now we move on to the age of revolution. A number of revolutions from 1830 to 48 helped for the unification of territories and formation of nation states. So from 1830 to 48, Europe had revolutionary upheavals or revolutions led by liberal nationalists belonging to the educated middle class. They were professors, school teachers, clerks, and commercial middle class. The first upheaval took place in France in July 1830. As a result of this revolution, Bourbon kings who had been restored to power by Vienna Congress were overthrown and constitutional monarchy was established as Louis Philippe as king in France. In a constitutional monarchy, the country would be ruled by a king or queen whose power is limited by constitution. Remember, until then France had absolute monarchy. July Revolution in France sparked an uprising in many parts of Europe. An uprising in Brussels led to Belgium breaking away from the United Kingdoms of Netherlands. Now we shall look at the Greek War of Independence. Greece was a part of Ottoman Empire or Muslim Empire since 15th century. Ottoman Empire was one of the mightiest dynasties in world history. This Islamic-run superpower ruled large areas of the Middle East, Eastern Europe and North America for more than 600 years. The growth of revolutionary nationalism in Europe sparked off a struggle for freedom among the Greeks which began in 1821. Poets and artists lauded Greece as the cradle or birthplace of Western civilization because many aspects of modern societies such as the Western art, philosophy, history and more importantly democracy are originated in Greece. So the poets and artists mobilized public opinion to support its struggle for freedom from Ottoman Empire. Nationalists in Greece got support from other Greeks who were in exile in other parts of Europe. Many Western Europeans had sympathy for ancient Greek culture, so they also supported the Greeks to fight for freedom. Finally, the Treaty of Constantinople of 1832 recognized Greece as an independent nation. Is there anything else help for the rise of nationalism other than wars? Let us see. The romantic imagination and national feeling. The development of nationalism did not come about only through wars and territorial expansion, but culture like art, poetry, story and music played an important role in creating nationalist feeling among the common man. Romanticism. Romanticism was a cultural movement that criticized glorification of reason and science. It focused on emotions and mystical feelings. It helped the artists to focus on emotions and create sympathy among the people. Its idea was to create a sense of common cultural past as the basis of nation. Secondly, folk songs, dances and poetry helped to find a common identity among the uneducated people. Johann Gottfried was a German philosopher. He tried to popularize the spirit of nation through folk songs, folk poetry and folk dances among the uneducated people. So collecting and recording these forms of folk culture was essential for nation building. The emphasis on local language and folklore helped to carry the nationalist message to illiterate audiences, especially in the case of Poland, which was partitioned by Russia, Prussia and Austria. National feelings were kept alive through opera music and language. Opera is a dramatic story told through song. Language too played an important role in developing nationalist sentiments. Polish language was forced out of schools and Russian language was imposed everywhere in Poland. After the failure of an armed rebellion against Russian rule, many members of the clergy began to use Polish language for church gatherings and all religious instructions. Large number of bishops and priests were punished for their refusal to preach in Russian language. So Polish language came to be seen as a symbol of struggle against Russian dominance. So these were the contributions of culture to the growth of nationalism. Now let us see how economic hardships gave way for a revolution. Hunger, hardship and popular revolt. 1830s were years of great economic hardships in Europe. In the first half of the 19th century, there was an enormous increase in population all over Europe. Population from rural areas migrated to the cities in search of employment and lived in overcrowded slums. The rise of food prices and barn harvests made people poor and led them to widespread protest. The educated middle class or liberals were leading the protest in Europe. What is meant by the 1848 revolution of the liberals, and what were the political, social and economic ideas supported by the liberals? Since the French Revolution, liberalism stood for the end of autocracy and clerical privileges. They also stood for a constitution and representative government through parliament. The memory of the 1789 French Revolution continued to inspire the liberal nationalists. They criticized the new conservative order that had come up after the defeat of Napoleon. Freedom of press was one of the major issues taken up by the liberals because Vienna Congress re-established monarchical or conservative rule in many states of Europe, and these conservative regimes did not tolerate criticisms, and most of them imposed censor laws to control what was said in newspapers, books, plays and songs. Censor laws were imposed by these monarchical or conservative rules to curb the liberal nationalist activities that reflected the ideas of liberty and freedom. The revolutionaries had commitment to oppose monarchical forms of government. They aimed to fight for liberty, freedom and creation of nation states. The 1848 revolution was led by the educated middle class along with the unemployed starving peasants and workers in Europe. In certain parts of Europe such as Germany, Italy, Poland and Austro-Hungarian Empire, men and women of liberal middle classes came together to demand for the creation of nation states based on parliamentary principles. In February 1848, food shortages and unemployment made the people of Paris to protest against the government. Louis Philippe, the French monarch, was forced to abdicate the throne, and National Assembly proclaimed the France as a republic. What is a republic? Republic means a country that has an elected government and an elected leader. We know that France was an absolute monarchy where king had all powers, and 1789 revolution caused to establish a constitutional monarchy whereby the king's powers were limited by a constitution. By 1848 revolution, monarchy was removed from France and it became a republic. Now, what were the political, social and economic ideas supported by the liberals? Politically, they demanded constitutionalism with national unification. They wanted the creation of a nation state on parliamentary principles, freedom of the press and freedom of association. Socially, they were against autocracy and privileges by birth. They wanted to abolish serfdom and bonded labor from the society. Economically, liberals wanted freedom of markets and right to property. They also wanted abolition of state-imposed restrictions on the movements of goods and capital. Making of Germany. Now let us look at what was the situation in the German regions and the making of Germany. At the end of Napoleonic Wars, There were 39 independent German-speaking states in Europe. Prussia was the most powerful German state, dominated by landlords known as Junkers. On 18 May 1848, members of political associations came together to propose the unification of Germany. It was an all-German assembly formed by the middle-class professionals, businessmen, and prosperous artisans to propose the unification of Germany. This assembly was convened in the Church of St. Paul in the city of Frankfurt on 18 May 1848. They drafted a constitution for a German nation to be headed by a monarchy subject to a parliament. In other words, they wanted to form a constitutional monarchy. Frederick William IV, the King of Prussia, was offered the crown, but he rejected it and joined the other monarchs who opposed the elected assembly. So in the end, Frankfurt Parliament was forced to disband on 31st May as it faced opposition from aristocracy and military. Now we will move on to the role of women in nationalist struggles. Large number of women had participated actively in the liberal movement over the years. But the issue of extending political rights to women was a controversial one within the movement. Women had formed their own political associations, founded newspapers, and taken part in political meetings and demonstrations. Despite this, they were denied the right to vote during the election of the assembly. When the Frankfurt Parliament was convened in the Church of St. Paul, they were admitted only as observers to stand in the visitors' gallery. Now let us look into the making of Germany and Italy. A focus on these two countries will help us to know how nations developed over the 19th century. In 1848, the middle-class Germans tried to unite the different regions of the German Confederation into a nation-state governed by an elected parliament. But they were repressed by the combined forces of the monarchy and military, supported by the large landowners of Prussia. From then on, Prussia took the leadership of German unification movement. Its chief minister, Otto von Bismarck, was the architect of the unification. Bismarck carried out this process with the help of Prussian army and Prussian bureaucracy. Prussia won wars with Austria, Denmark, and France to complete the unification process over 7 years' time. In January 1871, an assembly comprising of princes of German states, representatives of the army, important Prussian ministers, and Bismarck gathered in the Palace of Versailles. In this ceremony, the new German Empire was proclaimed and the Prussian king, Kaiser William, was declared as the German emperor. So, the unification of Germany was done with the help of Prussian army and bureaucracy. Now we move on to the unification of Italy. Italy was divided into 7 states. Of these, only Sardinia Piedmont was ruled by an Italian princely house. The north was under the Austria-Habsburg Empire. The central Italy was ruled by the Pope. While the southern regions were dominated by the Bourbon kings of France. Also, the Italian language had many regional variations. In the 1830s, Giuseppe Mazzini formed a secret society called Young Italy and initiated a unification program but failed. The revolutionary uprisings in 1831 and 1848 largely failed in Italy. Thus, the responsibility of uniting Italian states was now on King Victor Emmanuel II of Sardinia Piedmont. Count Camillo de Cavour, the Chief Minister of Sardinia, led the movement to unify the regions of Italy. He was able to conclude a diplomatic alliance with France that helped him to defeat Austrian forces in 1859. Apart from regular forces, a large number of volunteers named Red Shirts under the leadership of Giuseppe Garibaldi also joined the movement. In 1860, these troops marched into South Italy and the two Sicilies, and these areas were liberated and joined with Sardinia. It is known as the Expedition of the Thousands. In 1861, Victor Emmanuel II was proclaimed the King of United Italy. Rome became a part of unified Italy in 1870 only. Count Camillo de Cavour had an important role in the unification of Italy. Cavour was an Italian statesman and the Chief Minister of Sardinia Piedmont, who led the unification movement of Italy. He was neither a revolutionary nor a democrat. Like many other wealthy and educated Italian elite, he spoke French much better than Italian. He was able to conclude a diplomatic alliance with France and provoke a war with Austria. This alliance helped him to defeat the Austrian forces, liberate Lombardy and Venetia, which were at the northern part of Italy, and end Austrian rule in Italian region. So this is all about making of Germany and Italy. Now we will move on to the history of nationalism in Britain. The process of formation of Britain was totally different from the unification of other states like Germany or Italy. How was the history of nationalism in Britain unlike the rest of Europe? In Britain, the formation of the nation state was not the result of a sudden upheaval or revolution. It was a long drawn out process. English, Welsh, Scot or Irish were the ethnic groups who inhabited the British Islands. Ethnic group means people who share a common cultural background. All these groups had their own cultural and political traditions. English Parliament seized power from the monarchy in 1688. The English steadily grew in wealth and power and extended its influence to other regions like Scotland. The Act of Union in 1707 between English and Scotland resulted in the formation of the United Kingdom of Britain. Scotland's distinctive culture and political institutions were systematically suppressed by the English. The Scottish Highlanders were forbidden to speak their Gaelic language or wear their national dress. A large numbers were forcibly driven out of their homeland. Ireland was divided between Catholics and Protestants. The English helped the Protestants to establish their dominance over the Catholics. Catholic revolts against British dominance were suppressed. Ireland was forcibly incorporated into the United Kingdom in 1801. The symbols of the New Britain, the British flag, the national anthem, and the English language were actively promoted, and the other nations survived only as subordinate partners in this union. So, a new British nation was formed through a propagation of a dominant English culture. Visualizing the nation. In olden times, the best way to present an idea was through symbolic personifications were used. This was the most common and appealing way to invite people's attention. 18th and 19th centuries found a way out by personifying a nation. They represented a country as if it were a person. French Revolution artists used the female allegory to portray ideas such as liberty, justice, and the republic. In the previous class, you have studied how these ideals were represented through specific objects like red cap, broken chain, or the tricolor. Similarly, 19th century artists invented female allegories to represent the nation. What was the importance of the way in which the nations were portrayed? It gave a concrete form for the abstract idea of the nation. Christine de Marianne, a popular Christian name, became the female image representing the Republic of France. Her characteristics were drawn from the symbols of liberty and the Republic, such as the red cap, the tricolor, and the cockade. Statues of Marianne were erected in public squares to remind the people about the national symbol of unity. Similarly, Germania became the allegory of the German nation. She wears a crown of oak leaves because the German oak stands for heroism. These female images reminded the people of the national symbol of unity. Nationalism and imperialism. Imperialism is a political system in which a rich and powerful country controls other countries which are not rich and powerful as itself. European countries like Britain, France, Germany, Portugal, Italy, Spain, and Belgium established their colonies in Asian and African countries for raw materials for the industries and to sell their manufactured goods. Balkan was the easternmost of Europe's three great southern peninsulas. It was a region of geographical and ethnic variation. Balkans comprised of modern-day Romania, Bulgaria, Albania, Greece, Macedonia, Croatia, Bosnia, Herzegovina, Slovenia, Serbia, and Montenegro. The inhabitants of this region were known as the Slavs, an ethnic group. Ethnic group means a community or population who share a common cultural background. A large part of Balkans was under the control of Ottoman Empire. The nationalist tensions emerged in the Balkans due to the spread of romantic nationalism and the disintegration of the Ottoman Empire. Balkan states were fiercely jealous of each other and hoped to gain more territory at the expense of the other. So different Slavic communities in the Balkans began to strive for independence. European powers like Germany, Russia, and England were also looking forward to extend their control over the Balkan area. These conflicts led to a series of wars in the region and finally to the First World War. So this is all about chapter 1, the rise of nationalism in Europe. Thank you for watching.